So the first thing I want to do is introduce our first speaker, Deb Krier. Deb is a coalition builder and a warrior who is rewriting the playbook on how to live with cancer. She has a special LIVE that I'm sure she'll tell us about. She was diagnosed with stage 4 triple positive cancer in 2015, and she's seen what happens when cancer has people instead of people having cancer. And so now Deb's on a mission to ensure that we're no longer, oh, we're fine with cancer. And she's energizing our voices, expanding our choices. She's an unlikely survivor of cancer at all, and she has experienced the disconnection and despair of the system that where cancer is the star of the show instead of uh, the hurdle to overcome. And people and our choices in our lives are still the star of the show. So instead of watching silently from the sidelines, like she saw other people do, she's using her experience and expertise to what she calls kill cancer with honesty, communication, and collaboration. So Deb is here to help us get started on the day when people dealing with cancer from all sides no longer fight their own battles alone and instead create coalitions that honor each other. Thanks, Deb. It's so wonderful to have you here, and I really appreciate you kicking us off.
Well, thank you so much. I am so honored to have been asked because I think this is such an important topic, and we're all going to learn a lot and have fun, right? That's part of this. We got to have fun.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you forget to have fun when there's serious stuff going on, but
Mhm.
it's not the only thing that's allowed. Is
Right.
being all serious about all of it. So I wonder if we could start here. As a business owner who you had your business already when cancer came calling, how did you continue and how do you now continue to do business while on your cancer journey?
Well, as you said, I was diagnosed back in 2015, and in a former life, I worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. So as I tell people, I know just enough to be dangerous. Um, and so when I got my diagnosis, I quite literally looked at the doctor and said, "I'm sorry, that's not in my schedule." Yeah, no, 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 no. And I went from a stage 0, so pre-cancer diagnosis, to several months later, they went, "We're really sorry, but it's stage 4." Um, and it was just one of those things where every time you turned around, you were thrown for a loop. And I started my business, which is Wise Women Communications. Now it's been 20 years ago, then it would have been 15 years ago. And it was one of the nice things was it gave me something to do and something to focus on. And I think that's one of the important things is whether it's your business or you are an employee or a consultant or something, to have something that you can focus on in order to kind of get yourself up every day. And because it is really easy for us to think, "Oh my God, I have cancer. I'm going to die. I'm going to, all these horrible, awful things. But oh, wait, I have some deadlines I have to meet and I have to do payroll. Oh, wait, I have to invoice." And then it just kind of gets pushed into the background, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. It can really take over your worries and you forget to be able to do anything
Right.
else otherwise. Um, so how did you adjust the way you ran your business from before to after?
One of the things that I learned very quickly was, trying to figure out who you could even tell. And it was, I had a very unusual journey, because like I said, I was diagnosed with stage 0, so I wasn't going to tell anybody because there wasn't going to be anything to tell them, right? And unfortunately, when I started chemo, I had a very life-threatening complication. So I went from working to being in the ICU. So all of a sudden, the whole world came crashing down. But I really only lost about a month of work where I just could not function. And the nice thing was the other people that work with me picked up the slack. And I had told my clients, Wise Women is a marketing firm. And so I had told them, I said, "I got this little thing going on. You might not hear from me for a day or two. We didn't know it was going to be 7 weeks. But they all adapted, and I think that's a big part of this as we go through this journey is if we are working with, excuse me, or for someone who has an issue with the fact that there are days where we do disappear, days where we have to take naps, all of those various things. Do we really want to be working with them? And I mean, that really is kind of one of the things. And of course, it is a challenge because we want our business to keep going. So we have to be, have to have that money coming in. But my clients were very understanding. And they knew that, there would be times where things just wouldn't happen. I also have a podcast. I've had it now for 10 years. And so for a month, my producer ran best of, that worked just fine. It was, and nobody even knew. I mean, it was just, hey, she took December off. She's having best of. So it was something that, we just, that I had people who could cover the slack, which I think is one of the very important things that we all need to do. And it's really hard because as a business owner, frequently we're like, well, no, I'm the only one who can do that. No one else can do that. I'm the only one. And we need to realize that not only can someone else do it, they might do it better. But part of it is being organized ourselves and knowing, okay, this needs done on this date. This is how I do this, all those various things, and having that written down. And I've always kind of operated, for, my entire career in the hit by a bus theory. If I get hit by a bus, could someone else take over and do what I'm doing? So I've always been one of these people who writes everything down, it saves everything, right? My Outlook every once in a while goes, your files are too big. But by doing that, then it is much easier for people to step in and take over. But sometimes it's just the simple things like your passwords. Can somebody even get into your computer, into your phone? Who is going to pay the bills? Especially if you are completely incapacitated, and so you need to have all of that taken care of. And then obviously you need to have taken care of the other things, your powers of attorney, your will, all of those various things, just more than anything, just so that they're done and you don't have to worry about it.
So there are things to do from the moment you get the diagnosis
Right. Mm-hmm.
and before any actual treatment has started. But also, if you're somewhere in the middle of the treatment and
Mm-hmm.
recovery and all that, it's helpful to get it handled now.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of
Yeah.
the
I
things
mean,
I discovered is some of the stuff I delegated, I continue to delegate. I figured, oh, hey, I don't have to do that. Which was very liberating to go back to doing the things in business that I wanted to do and pass off the things that somebody else was really good at.
yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So let's see. So you told your clients, did you tell all of them the whole story or and what do you tell them now?
It was, they're the same clients, which is kind of fun. It's, I didn't go into a lot of detail. I just said, hey, I've got this diagnosis, going to have surgery, going to have chemo, radiation at that point we knew was going to be much further down the line. But they, of course, said, what do we need to do? How can we help? And so that was great. It was really funny. That was actually how I got my first COVID shots, because we all knew that we were the people who needed shots first, and here in Georgia we couldn't get them. I mean, it was just one of those things. I had just assumed my oncologist would have them, and they said, sorry, we don't. So that was kind of odd. But my client, my big main primary client, manages senior living communities. So obviously very at-risk populations, but they're high-end senior living communities. And so I happened to say something, early on in COVID. My client said, so how are you doing? And I said, well, fine, but I can't get my COVID shot. And he said, you do remember who you work for, right? And so I went off to one of my little communities, checked the box that said employee and got my COVID shot. And then when it was time for the booster, I went back and got my oncologist thought that was the funniest thing in the world because they couldn't even get the shots. I had them before anybody else did. But, I think more than anything, we just have to keep those lines of communication open, especially, and we don't have to go into detail. People, they don't need to know, well, hey, I have X number of drugs that I'm getting today, or all of those various things. It's just, today's going to be one of my days where I'm not going to be very responsive. Okay. And I'm very fortunate in the fact that I can work 24/7 any place that has internet. And hospitals and doctors' offices have really good Wi-Fi for the most part. So I got a lot of work done just sitting when I was in the various rooms.
Yeah, exactly. So if you get a little creative and kind of open up to what might be possible, that we end up discovering a lot more actually is possible.
Mhm.
So
And we do discover that a lot of what we think has to be done doesn't. For example, one of the things that I could not do for quite a long time, COVID completely aside, I couldn't network. I physically could not go and network. Just because, we couldn't. But it was one of those things where it was so special the first time I went back to one of my networking groups, and I was almost bald as a billiard ball. I had this and so I had a hat on, and I had lost 70 pounds. I mean, I went to this frail little thing. And everybody just ran up and hugged me. I mean, it was, and it was kind of like they needed to touch to make sure I really was okay. And it was just, that was so much fun to do that, because as we all know, as we go through this, many times we feel very alone. And I discovered I was not, and I hadn't been. And so I should have been asking for more help, but just kind of assumed, oh, everybody's busy, right? They're not even thinking about it. They really were thinking about me.
that's a really great message because I remember for me too, it was a little bit of a challenge to think, okay, so what do I ask people to help
Right.
with? You know,
Mhm.
what's asking too much, what works, what are the logistics like? It's
Well,
I
and
sort of felt like I had to organize the entire thing
yeah,
A to
I think that's
Z.
got to be in a woman, right? But people would say, "What can we do?" But they would just be so generic like that. Well, our little brains were so full of, "Oh my God, I have cancer and I'm doing this and this and this," that we couldn't stop and think, "I need somebody to go to the grocery store. I need somebody to take my dog to the vet." All of those things, and so I encourage people when they're asking, be specific and say, can I run an errand for you? Can I do this? Can I do that? One of the things that I had, and this was, I put this out on Facebook because that's how I communicated with all my people when I was sick. After I got home, I ended up being in the hospital for over 7 weeks. And one of the things that they had said was, you need to get out and get exercise. Well, I also knew that I was going to be real weeble wobbly, and going by myself was not good. And so I posted on Facebook, "Hey friends, I need people to come and walk me." And I had all these volunteers who came and would spend 15, 20 minutes walking me up to the end of the cul-de-sac and walking me back down. But it made them feel good because it gave them something specific to help with. And it took maybe an hour out of their day, but it really did help me. So that's one of the other things I tell people is, when I need something, I need to ask specifically, and they can always turn you down. And when you are the other side, ask specifically then too. Just don't say, let me know if you need something, because
Yes.
we don't want to bother. We don't want to do all those various things. And especially in business, don't just say, "Hey, tell us if you need help." It's like, "Hey, there's this monthly report that needs run. Do you need me to help with that?" And if you do or you don't, then you can decide.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and if you're speaking to colleagues,
Mhm.
just saying, well, just let me find out how to run that
Mhm.
report
Mhm.
so that I'm ready to step in,
And that's
when,
scary, because
yeah,
part of it is we're thinking, if somebody else starts doing my job, maybe they don't need me to do my job, right? But you added to their workload and they're only doing it temporarily. And it's the same thing as if you were on vacation, right? There's things that have to be done. And so you shouldn't be afraid that you're going to lose your position just because you have asked for help.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the reality is we're all so busy and our plates are so full in whatever employment situation that we might be able to help for a little while, but we don't want to
Right.
necessarily take that on
Mhm.
permanently.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, if I can run a
not
one
really
report,
sustainable.
sure. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, so what about, I know you talk sometimes to people who might need to put their business on hold. What kind of conversation do you have with them about that?
That's where it is a challenge because if you have to put it on hold, there's obviously quite a few things that you have to take into account, and some of them might actually be legal depending on what's going on. If you have employees, things like that, what are you going to do? And so I do encourage anybody, if they're having to go through this, you might need to talk to an attorney and just make sure that what you're doing is appropriate. But again, let your clients know, and hopefully they'll come back when you're back. But it's they might not. And there are times where you do have to think, okay, that's not what I need to be focusing on, because ultimately you do need your focus to be on yourself and on healing yourself. And if you lose some clients, if your business closes, well, you know you have to be healthy. That really is what is so important. And so it's kind of a fine line, right? We talk about the fact that your business and work gives you something to live for, but you also can't let it drive you into the ground, because you have to be focusing on yourself.
Right, exactly. So, one of the things that I just noticed in that is that, you might lose a client or two. And it could be that looking at an option like that, like just scaling back some can be helpful.
Right. Mhm.
Um, it's one of the messages that I usually promote is, it isn't necessarily an either or
Mhm.
decision.
Right.
It's not a light switch where, you know, the only way to do things is keep going full throttle ahead or else full
Right.
stop.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe
so
it's, can I do half of what I've been doing? Three
mhm,
quarters,
mhm,
whatever.
yeah,
And again, it's that communication. Your clients cannot read your mind. They're worried about you too. They don't want you to overwork, but they're a business.
yeah,
Their things need to be done too. But if you are honest with them and say, I need to scale back, I need to only do half of what I've been doing, or maybe I can only do it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is that you're doing for them. And obviously offer to adjust what you're charging. Don't expect that you're going to do less work for more money. And
yeah.
in many cases, hopefully they'll say, you know what, we're good with paying. But you have no idea. But again, it's about opening, keeping those lines of communication open.
Exactly. Yeah, so true. And yeah, it's amazing how there are experiences of somebody whose situation requires them to um, kind of make a shift away.
Mhm.
But also other people who kind of lean in and say, "Oh, okay, so you're focusing on this part of the work you used to do. Let me actually like purposefully look for things like that." Um, and for me, I lean towards in that situation, you really want asynchronous work, right?
Right.
Where it's if you were hoping to do it on Monday, but Monday doesn't turn out to be such a good day, that Tuesday and Wednesday is fine.
Mhm. Right, right,
Yeah. So, and then of course not scheduling meetings, the day of chemo or the day after or whatever it might be.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny what we do. I mean, I know that when I've been in the treatment room, there have been people in there who are on conference calls, and you're kind of overhearing, and you're thinking, well, that's an interesting conversation. But yeah, we can continue to function in some of the weirdest places. So it's about being flexible. I did a lot of phone calls from my car, where I'd be driving back and forth between treatment or whatever. And yeah, it's kind of like this whole post-COVID world. We've adapted, and we've learned that we can meet via Zoom. We don't have to meet in person. We just had to learn it earlier than anybody else. And that's the nice thing about technology, is it really does allow us to make those changes without it being so drastic. Now, again, obviously it depends on what you're doing. But it is something where, technology is our friend, and so embrace it and think, okay, I can't do it this way for a while, so I'm going to have to do it this way. What do I need to do to make that work?
Exactly. Exactly. And there are a lot of good technologies and good people who can help bring that together in a way that's that works for an individual situation, personality,
Mhm.
and takes account of things like there's really great Wi-Fi at the doctor's office.
Well, people work from the beach. Why can't we work from the infusion room? You know?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, when you need to do it,
Mhm.
that's and it can be a good way to pass the time. And like you said, that sense of purpose,
Right.
it's there was one particular client who I continued going on site with.
Mhm.
And man, being a normal person with other normal people
Oh,
doing
wonderful. Right. Yeah.
yes.
And we hesitate to tell sometimes because we think people are going to think that we aren't strong, that there's something wrong with us. I mean, not everybody always understands some of these things. And so we hesitate to even tell people. Well, again, if they don't understand, then maybe they don't need to be part of your life. But going through this doesn't make us any less of anything.
Right, exactly. And and it can open a window into a new way of doing things
Mhm.
that brings you forward into the future and brings out something about you that hasn't had the chance to shine in your previous circumstances. So that's part of what I'm trying to do with this project,
Mhm.
is you know to find a way that I'm making a contribution by standing up on my soapbox and saying, "Hey, it's
Mhm.
it's
Right.
okay. Yes, things are likely to be different and there are likely to be hard spots, but life has always had hard spots
Well, and
and
it's no different
we
than
can
if, say,
figure it out."
you had a baby or,
Right?
there's, yeah, but for some reason we think, oh, they're not going to like it that we have cancer. Pretty much
Yep.
a lot of the population has it or has to deal with it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the number of people who get it now is really amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I wonder if you would also, speaking of new projects, tell us a little bit about your new project and tell me how it was named, because I think that's a fun story I'd like other people to
So,
hear.
it is trying not to die.live. And the trying not to die part is kind of a two-part thing. The first part is we do get so caught up in trying to not die when we're going through all of this that we forget that we have to live. But it initially came about when I was in the hospital and my mom was out. She came in and was able to stay, which was great because then there was always somebody with me in the hospital. And one of the medical people came in and did something and flitted back out. And I got the mom look, and I went, what? And she said, you did not say thank you. And I said, oh, for God's sakes, I'm trying to not die here. And it was so funny to really think about that because we do sometimes we forget to say please, thank you, all of those nice things because we're trying to not die. But when I decided to, I had for years people say, you didn't go through what you did without using it to help others. And I went, yeah, but I don't want to be cancer girl. And finally, a mentor of mine who I absolutely think is fabulous convinced me that this was something I needed to do, and I needed to help others. And so, I'm a good little marketing person. I go to register tryingnottodie.com, and it was taken. How rude, right? And it was not in use, but somebody owned it. I contacted them, and they wanted like $5,000. And I said, well, this is just something that's noodling around in my brain. I'm not going to pay $5,000 for that. So, when you go to GoDaddy and the other things that you can, the other places where you can buy URLs, it will suggest, that there are other things that are there, and .live was available. And so we thought, okay, well, this has to be, the thing. And so we did create an acronym out of it. And, part of this, and this goes to how we function in business with cancer. I learned very quickly, if I was going to do this and make it work, I couldn't do it by myself. I had to bring in a team of people. I'm a marketing person. I can design logos, I can design brands, I can do websites. But if I really wanted it to be good, I needed to hire it done. So I've put together this absolutely fabulous team who, love dearly, who have bought into my passion here. And so one of the things that we did was we created this acronym for LIVE. And, it's also the concept that we have to have our tribe around us. So that, that pertains to this. So then it's lead your tribe, from family to physicians. You must lead your coalition. Invigorate your soul, putting yourself first as if it is your life on the line. Voice your feelings across a bridge of honesty, for only the truth is acceptable. And elevate your mindset with a belief that you will indeed be fine, no matter what the final results. And, it really is just something that we're having so much fun with. And more importantly, we're helping people who are on this journey. One of the things that I saw very early when I was diagnosed was the saying that fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior responds, I am the storm. And, and so that's the whole concept of this, is that we are warriors. And we're warriors, we're survivors. From the second we were diagnosed, we became survivors. Anybody who tells you anything different, no, you are a survivor the second you said, okay, now what? And so we're warriors, we're survivors, but we cannot do it alone. We have to build our tribe around us, whether it's people who are going to support us in business, people who are going to support us in our personal life, your medical team. We all kind of sometimes go, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, they work for us. And so who are we going to pull together to make the strongest tribe so that we can get through this journey?
Yeah.
And sometimes you lose your voice.
And I'm not helping any because I'm not talking for you.
These things happen, because when you're out living your life, sometimes you catch a cold.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, well, speaking of that medical angle, I think it's interesting. I was saying at the beginning, that we're covering business and lifestyle and medical, and I wasn't particularly thinking of it so much as the medical part would be part of what you're talking about, but it really is, that whole relationship with your doctors and the whole medical team.
And it's bringing in other things. I mean, it's no longer is it just you have this course of action that you have to take. It's okay, I'm going to add Eastern medicine to it. I'm going to add a nutritionist to this. Whatever you are comfortable with, that's what you need to do. And because it is you going through it. Nobody else should be able to tell you, no, you shouldn't do that. No, and so it is about developing the best course of action for you.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, it's there can be things the doctor has to say that you don't necessarily want to hear.
Mhm.
Like, it's I had a very, very small surgery quite recently and was told not to exercise for several weeks. And I was not happy to hear that at all
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's amazing how
Right.
impactful exercise
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, uh,
Maybe
once I
when it's
started
like
exercising
dizziness
again,
or
it helped a
whatever,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you do have to, listen to that advice, and then the trick is to say, "Okay, I have, 5
Mhm.
legs on my stool holding me
Mhm.
up, and if one of them has to be given up for a while, how do I rearrange them
Right.
so
Mhm.
so that I
Mhm.
still have a stool that stands?"
Mhm. Right. And
Yeah.
it is, this journey is our journey, and we have to be the ones who make the decisions for it. And it's interesting because when I worked for the oncologist, that was 30 years ago. And treatments obviously have changed an awful lot in 30 years, but in many ways they're very much the same. But now we do have so many other things. I know you've got some great speakers lined up who are going to address things like meditation, yoga. I mean, all of these things, they're good for us in general, no matter what, right? But when we're going through this journey, they're going to help even more. And meditation in particular, is one of those things where, it's our brains don't go to some bad places while we're going through all of this. And we need that to kind of bring us back to say, okay, and people told me all along, you have got to do yoga. Now I kind of ignored them. But all of these various things are going to help us on our journey to get through it. And it does have to be a combination of what is going to work best. And back to business. I mean, maybe that's going to be okay. I'm going to work for 2 hours, then I'm going to take a walk. Then I'm going to work for another 2 hours and I'm going to stretch, all of these things. And I'm not going to work past 3 because I have to nap. Um, you know,
Mhm. Right.
all of these things. And so it's just, we have to figure out what's going to work best for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and it can be done, and it's just a matter of a step at a time and knowing where to start. So,
Mhm.
um, yep, and sometimes, like you said, having your tribe to kind of help
Mhm.
support you in getting that process figured out. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Um, so I know that you have offered a gift, and actually that kind of goes back to the communicating with your medical team. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So we've got this great notebook. It's called and it's I Am Tribe. It's an organizer for life, and we developed it. And the gift that we have is a PDF version of it. If you're a VIP, you do get the fancy notebook and all sorts of things. But it's a way to gather your medical records, and have all of those things because I tell people when we go in to the doctor and we've got the flu, we go home and we go, when are we supposed to take that medicine? And or they say, now, what do you take and what are the doses? I don't know. You prescribed it. Um, and so this notebook is a way to organize all of that. It also organizes all of your tribe. Who's going to do what? Do you have certain people who are the people who take the dog to the vet? You've got all of that in one place. And then it does have other things like what is the patient's bill of rights? What are things that you actually, can and should ask for? Talks a little bit about, wills, powers of attorney, things like that. I have people who do not have cancer who use it because it's a great way for them to keep all their information in one place. So on the speaker page, we do have a link there where you can sign up and download the PDF. It's 35 pages. I mean, this is something where it's taken us a long time to develop it because we wanted to make sure it was pretty comprehensive. But if you get a copy and you see something that you would think would be a good change, let me know, because it's the reason we put it in a 3-ring binder is because you have other stuff you're going to put in there. You're going to have your test results, all of these various things. And by making it a 3-ring binder, stuff can come, stuff can go, and we can add to it also. And I
Yeah,
thank you,
exactly.
Julianne, for allowing me the opportunity to offer that.
Sure, sure, absolutely. And I guess I would just say it's also really helpful to throw in a couple of blank
Mhm.
pages of just blind note paper. Write the questions that you have for the doctor before you go,
Oh yeah,
and
always do
then
that.
write down
Because
all the
like I said, we
answers.
go in and we go, ooh. I love,
Yes.
there's a sign on my doctor's office door. So, you see it when you're for each little office, and it says, you do not leave if your questions have not been answered. And I love that. I just think that's the greatest
Yeah.
thing. And I tell people, if at all possible, don't go by yourself, especially for those first appointments, because your brain shorts out. You're not going to remember. Write it down. If you need to, record it. And if the doctor has a problem with that, that's a different issue. So because it's your medical information, you can record it. But yeah, write all those questions down and don't leave. Don't let them push you off or say, hey, we're going to give you some handouts, or here's where to. No, you want to get the answers from them. And some of the answers are going to, or some of your questions are going to be things like, how long is it before I can go back to work? What are the side effects that I'm going to have? All of these various things. Make sure you ask those.
Yeah, exactly. And they may not be able to tell you
Right.
exactly, but
Mhm.
they can give you an idea of the shape and direction of
Right.
things.
Mine told me I was
And
going to die, and I went,
good for you. Obviously, you forgot to do that.
I'm just a rebel. I just didn't pay any attention. They did. They argued over how fast I was going to die that day. And I remember thinking, I can hear you.
My goodness. That must have been something.
Yeah, but that just goes, we're the ones in charge. We are in charge, nobody else. Now that said, your faith, if you have that, that is obviously something that is very important. And so it might be that your faith is that the higher power is in charge, but it's not the doctors, it's not your bosses, it's not your clients, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% with you on that. Thank you so much, Deb. This has been amazing. Always, every time I talk to you, I just
We
walk
have
away
so much
inspired.
fun.
Yeah, we do. We do. Thank you.
Well, thank
Um,
you. And again, I'm so honored to be a part of this. It's so much fun, and I can't wait to listen to the other speakers.
yeah, yes. Yeah, we really are on a mission, and we're just gonna make having had cancer not be something that disqualifies you from going after what you want.
Right.
And it may be a little different than it was before cancer came along, but things are a little different when you're 40 than they were when you were 25 too. That's just how life works.
Most definitely.
So,
And we won't even say what my age is.
well, I'm looking back myself. So,
Again, thank you so much. I'm very honored.
it was a delight to have you here. And I am not sure if we have given the link for the workbook yet. So we will get that to you. And in the meantime, grab a piece of paper or a Google Doc or whatever you use for that, and write down a couple of things that you took away from Deb's talk, because one of the things that we do is support folks in our community in going from, oh, that's an interesting thought, to how does it apply to me, and then how do I actually um, make sure I move forward with that application concept that I had. So right now, whatever instrument you have for writing and capturing your thoughts, please do jot down a couple of thoughts, so however many come to you. And uh, I guess there are a few that I took away from this. The most the one that really focuses most on me and what I'm trying to do for people is, this is another angle on the fact that your business can continue even though you're on this journey. I also work with folks who start businesses after treatment because they don't want to go back to whatever they were doing before. And that absolutely can happen. It's just a matter of having a plan and, taking it step by step. So let me just give you encouragement. Um, it might not be uh, what the easy button or the just hop in my program and you'll have 1,000 clients tomorrow kind of thing that you can sometimes see. um, but that's okay, and that kind of stuff was never really real in the first place. You can make this work for you, and there are folks who will help, and they may be the tribe you have in your life and business already. And then there are also experts, some of whom are here to help out with the other aspects of it that you don't happen to have handy. So yes, the business can continue. Delegating is never a bad thing. And you're right, Deb. It's not like it's a threat. It can feel that way, but I think that's more because that's how we respond to change, than any reality of us losing our place and our right to be in this world or in this work that we're in. And then always asking clients for help. Although your story of including your clients was really kind of an eye opener for me. At least in my past life, I didn't necessarily, I didn't necessarily lean too much on clients. It, there were a couple, but I was a little more hesitant about that, and it probably didn't end up serving me or other people as much as if I had opened up and just communicated a bit more. So maybe that's my takeaway for what I need to implement a little differently in my life. So here is contact information for Deb. And her free gift is on the schedule page. And we will make sure that you have an easy way to get to this slide as well in the future.